Hello, and welcome to episode 55 of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. I'm James Parisi here with my co-host Aiden Sarah, and my boy, we are right in the thick of things. We are almost at the Stanley Cup final. I'm kind of enjoying this hurry up and wait thing we've got going on, but as we're waiting for June 8th for puck to drop in Florida between the Edmonton Oilers and the Panthers, we've got some stuff to talk about. And I gotta ask, is the anticipation building for you? Because I am so excited. Aiden, how are we feeling about these finals?
I'm pretty stoked. I was talking about this with a friend yesterday, and I kind of think uh, if you had to order James like Stanley Cup finals since 2010 into a tier list, on paper, this looks like it's going to be in that upper tier. Like you have that Vancouver Boston 2011, you probably have that St. Louis Boston from 2019. And then beyond that, I liked the Colorado Tampa final. That was an exciting watch. Washington Vegas was exciting, but it was a little bit too short. But man, like this this could provide some drama, and I really hope it goes the distance. You talked about enjoying the hurry up and wait thing. Why'd they have a week off? Can you provide some insight? Because I just figured that they had decided this they had stupidly decided this when both series were at 2-2 and it could still have gone seven, and then they just stuck to it. What do you have any do you have any either ideas or specific knowledge as to why we are sitting here without hockey for so long? Because it's kind of annoying, actually.
Well, Aiden, there's two things. One, I think they had it planned out that okay, if this goes to seven, this will all go according to plan because the NBA finals starts tomorrow. And I think they want to have that staggered. They don't want to have any conflict broadcast wise because NBA final game one tomorrow, game two Sunday, game three Wednesday. So already it won't conflict with game one or two of the NBA finals. And I think that's most of it. Other than that, yeah, I think planning for it to go to seven and just in case making sure it doesn't have any broadcast issues with the NBA finals. And then also, I think they just kind of want to take advantage of what isn't being broadcasted in late June. Late June is pretty nice. You can get some good viewership numbers in late June. And you know what? If it goes to game 7, it's on my birthday. If I get to watch a cup final game 7 on my birthday, I'll be overjoyed. I don't care who wins. I've got no dog in this fight. Just want to see a good game. Good cup final game and the Stanley Cup being awarded on my birthday. Couldn't ask for much more.
Could have started Thursday the 6th. Like it feels like such a long time. And I get the temptation to try and stagger it with the NBA. Um kind of makes is I don't love it because at the end of the day, like it's I kind of look at that as like a okay, when it works out, it's nice, but delaying delaying the start of your final by at least 3 full days longer than it needed to be kind of seemed silly. But when we finally do get there, man, like, have Edmonton and Florida been the best two teams in the playoffs throughout? Probably not, but
Florida might have.
yeah, they've definitely both impressed me with kind of the, and I talk about it a lot, and it sounds like such a vague, stupid term, but truly there is a certain there's a certain importance to just being the kind of team that can find a way to win. And those teams often end up with the most success. And that's kind of what I think about both Florida and Edmonton, whether it's issue, no matter what the issues are on any given night, the rest of the team can find a way to still get the victory. And that's why they're here. And man, no matter who wins, there's an intriguing storyline, isn't there? Like there's a lot of cool things that are gonna happen with no matter who wins this series.
Definitely. And I mean, before we go right deep into the Stanley Cup finals itself and the matchup we're presented with, should we go into how these conference finals played out? I think that's how we should approach it.
Yeah, which one do you want to start with?
Let's go east to west. Let's start in the east.
Okay. Well, James, and you can agree, disagree. Game four, series is tied 2-2 after Sam Reinhart scores in overtime. That was the moment the series was over for me. Because I don't know if you watched games 2 through 4, but Florida
Yeah.
dominated and the Rangers got lucky. Then Florida dominated and the Rangers got lucky. And then game four, Florida dominated beyond even what they did in the previous 2 or 3 games of the series. Like it was a whole other level. And the Rangers still managed to get it to overtime. Um, and then Reinhardt ends up scoring on the power play on just like a ridiculous bit of broken coverage down low from the Rangers on that PK. Um, and it kind of just felt like it was over from there. Like I felt like New York really didn't have much of an answer. They kept games close, but Florida through and through was the better team in that Eastern Conference final, and that's not what I expected. I really all season, it was all season. I had that Rangers in the back of my head, like they got humbled against Jersey. They're going to be back for revenge, and they were really right. They had 2 good rounds, and a lot of people had them losing to Carolina, but they got through the Hurricanes, and they lost to a better team at the end of the day.
Aiden, before I start analyzing, it isn't how you expected because we are now officially even on our bets. I made up for betting on Toronto over Boston by betting the Florida Panthers over the New York Rangers with you, and it worked out. It worked out nicely. I'm glad we're even. It was kind of a double or nothing for you there, and I felt a lot more confident about that poll, about that pick, than I did about the Leafs one. But the Leafs one, I just wanted it to work. I just wanted it to happen. As we've covered before, I was always sick of that storyline. But moving on, I think the thing with the Florida Panthers is they play that big boy schoolyard bully style of hockey where they'll beat you in the race to the swings at recess, but they won't just beat you there. They'll push you down on the way. And it just felt like the Rangers didn't have a lot of answers for that. Like you look at the clinching game, Vladimir Tarasenko was reverse hitting people and he was shouldering people out of the way. And that was just he was just one of many players on that Panthers team that it just felt like they were having their way.
Remind me to come back around to that point when we actually talk about the Florida Edmonton matchup.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Definitely. I was going to talk about that one quite a bit too.
that's baked into both my what Edmonton needs to avoid to manage to win and what Florida needs to make sure they do to manage to win. Um, yeah, and to the other thing in this series, Bobrovsky needed to be like 80% as good as Shesterkin, and he was better than that.
Yeah.
He
Winning
was,
that goaltending duel, that was amazing. That's
and
like probably the most underappreciated storyline there, I would say.
for sure, because to me that was what tipped the scales to me. Like you had two very good offenses, you had two very good defenses, and to me, New York's goalie, if somebody was going to steal a game, I thought it was going to be Igor, but Bobrovsky just, man, like this guy, and we talk about him potentially being in the Hall of Fame. Wouldn't it be cool with a uh this story for him to get finished off with a happy ending? And you know what? If Florida wins the cup, I've got him as my Conn Smythe pick right now in that scenario. I think it's one of Bobrovsky or McDavid, depending on who wins at the end of the day.
Or Barkov.
Markov, I wouldn't complain.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
yeah, the Barkov one really stands out to me quite a bit. But yeah, it's one of those two on the Panthers end. And you're right, Aiden. I mean, it would be capping off that storybook career. A couple Vezina trophies, a whole lot of wins. I mean, and we're by no means saying he's just going to retire right after this. That's not a thing. He's got more money to make. He's not going to retire out of that contract. But Sergei Bobrovsky at 35 years old, adding a Stanley Cup to his resume, lock Hall of Famer. I'll say it right now. Absolute lock. We've sent numerous goalies who just had winning regular season careers, maybe some good international play to the Hall of Fame now. If Bobrovsky wins a cup, easy money.
you got two
He,
Vezinas.
yeah, if he doesn't win a cup, played in 2 finals, that's more than Lundqvist did. I mean, it's not the sustained um 15 years of being an elite starter. He had some, I don't know, down years, is that what you'd call them? Years where Chris Dreger is taking the starting spot from him. Alex Lyon. Like, this is just recently. This is going back to the regular season before the one we just had.
Even this year, Anthony Stolarz had some stretches there where he was playing just as good as Bobrovsky was.
But that's because they cracked the code. Bob needs rest. If
Definitely.
Bobrovsky gets rest, he's elite. That's basically it. And Aiden, maybe the NHL script writers are saying we need this break so Bobrovsky could be elite.
Yeah, this
Maybe that's what's going on.
Panthers ownership has just massively lobbied the NHL to put this week off.
Panthers ownership booked several concerts in their arena for right before so they could delay. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up there, but yeah, I mean, the thing with the Rangers is I have no doubt in my mind they can be back to this spot next year. This isn't a team that's going to change much by next season. And I think it's going to keep giving people hell next playoffs. This is another year better that Alexis Lafreniere is going to be better. This is next year Brennan Othman could be injected into that lineup. Like we're looking at a Rangers team that's kind of built to succeed and built to succeed for a bit, but the one thing that's going to start hanging over our heads now is 1 year left on Igor Shesterkin's deal. 1 year until you're probably gonna have to pay him 10 and a half, 11 mil. I think that's what it's gonna take, especially
Well,
considering the tax situation in New York. Ugh.
yeah, and we've got a goalie by the name of Jeremy Swayman who's an RFA right now, and I think Swayman's number is going to greatly impact what Shesterkins ends up being. Like if Swayman goes in the 8-9, yeah, I could see Igor above 10. Like Igor's
I think Igor is gonna look at what Bob makes and say, "Cap's going up. I want over 10."
yeah, oh for sure. That's well, it's it's valid on its own in terms of the merit, but yeah, you're right. The salary cap's going up, so it's a smaller percentage now than when Bobrovsky signed it. And if I think New York for me has gotta. It's hard because it feels like on paper the pieces are there. The young players are starting to supplement a little bit. Philip Hedl not playing was massive. Philip Hedl not
Yeah,
100% was massive. I think if you're the Rangers and you can put together a third line that can both score and bang bodies well, I think that goes a long way. I think the problem was that they relied too heavily on that Barclay Goodrow fourth line, which often had Matt Rempe on it, and you can't be just expecting offense out of guys that aren't offensive players, right? It's nothing against those guys, but having the idea that they're going to contribute significantly offensively is a little bit far fetched. And I didn't think the third line did nearly a good enough job without Heedle on it, and Capo Caco to me was such a non-factor all playoffs. Like I think he
yeah.
on. I think you're going to see Philip Heedle end up centering two powerful wingers who can put the puck in the net. Um,
I'd
which
like to see Othman and a smooth skating veteran.
would be nice. I don't think Brendan Othman is gonna. I don't think they're gonna bring him up yet.
No?
If there's a salary cap reason, like if his ELC is gonna fit in a spot they couldn't fit anybody else in, I don't think he's not good enough to play there. I look at him and I think you need a little bit more rounding to your game, and I think the AHL is gonna be that for him. But Rangers kind of just do whatever they do with their prospects. It's very often just what do we need right now? Okay, go do it.
Well, Aiden, I mean, aside from that, I agree with most of what you just said there, but to me, the tail of the tape for the Rangers, why we ended up where we did is I didn't see enough from Keandre Miller. And to top it off, you were playing with probably 40% of Adam Fox. That guy wasn't able to skate, wasn't able to shoot. He's having a hard time making plays, hard time skating back into position. It was hard to watch one of the best defensemen on the planet struggle to exist like that. He was having such a hard time. What, like, I swear there's a leg and a shoulder thing going on.
It seemed like it.
Like I swear he's got something on his strong side on his stick on the like up near his shoulder, maybe back, and then I want to say what was it, his left leg? Because you just look at his stride and it's like it's planted. It's like it's stuck. He had a tree trunk there. And this is a guy who normally smooth skating, perfect first pass, solid shot, everything you could ask for in a top defenseman. But it just felt like he couldn't really get anything going. And I mean, props to him for playing through it. He was probably, who knows what it was taking for him to get in the lineup. But he was doing it. He was laying it all out there. I just, I think this team maybe could have got there if a few conditions were different, and that's one of them. I think there's a chance they could have got past the Panthers if they had a healthy Adam Fox.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I think a part of the reason you saw Adam Fox so neutralized as well was the fact that if you want to say the injuries were a huge factor, I'll believe you. But I think the other kind of important piece is that the Florida Panthers didn't give him any time to breathe, right? You can
Right.
injury if you have some space to just take that extra second and then protect yourself a little bit more, but still make the plays you're capable of making. And I think Florida deserves the credit, much in the same way that that I wanted to give the Nashville Predators the credit when, yeah, Quinn Hughes looked hurt in round one, but the Predators still were the reason he couldn't do anything, right? And I think Florida deserves the credit for that because, yeah, like Adam Fox on his own could have turned that series around, and they did a good job of identifying that. Okay, you know what, we just need to put the pressure on him, and that's kind of what I was going to say about the Panthers and the Oilers. It's forecheck, its intensity, and its physicality, and Paul Maurice has them going, and it's going to be a hard train to stop.
Now, Aiden, closing the book on the Rangers for the year, we'll come back to them in the offseason as we're going through teams and what changes are being made, maybe after the draft, see what happens there. But the Florida Panthers, is there anything you feel like they needed to improve on going to the Cup final? I'm having a really hard time finding any points there.
No, and I'm totally gonna like ignore the fact that you wanted me to go negative here and go positive.
Hmm.
Um, I from basically from the first time I watched Antoine Lundell play, I loved him. Like he screamed at me like amazing two-way second line center, right? Like it's
Baby
just
Barkov.
yeah, I totally. And his rookie year was his most productive, and then he's kind of taken a little bit more of a backseat role in Florida. But in these playoffs, this has been the best that I've seen him play. And it's not because he's scoring a lot. He's got 12 points in 17 games, like he's doing solid. But his he's grown even more into like I don't know how the Florida Panthers are able to exist with Alexander Barkov, Sam Bennett, and Anton Lundell. Like James, you have three centermen who are all just as good defensively as they are offensively, and they're all good offensively. Like it's just it's if you're building like your perfect ideal version of a team, do you not have a 90-point first line center who's a Selkie winner, a 60-point second line center who's a nuisance to play against and a headache, and a 40
Nuisance is a very polite word.
yeah. And a 40-point third line center who's growing into a two-way game. Like I just and maybe it's just because I love the Patrice Bergeron archetype so much, the responsible defensive forward who always pitches in offensively. It's probably my favorite type of player, especially from like a coaching and a what you need on your team standpoint. But man, it's a testament to it's a testament to the Panthers management because you got Barkov in the draft in a spot that a lot of people were surprised to see him taken. You get Bennett in a high value trade and you draft Anton Lundell with a 10th overall pick that you were maybe a little bit lucky to get, right? Like, but 1 plus 1 equals an amazing top three centers that Florida put together here. And if they win the cup, man, it'll be so because of that center core, whether or not they get the credit they deserve.
Aiden, let's look at some centers on center depth on cup winning teams. Tampa, Stamkos, Point, Sorelli, Colorado, McKinnon, Kadri, Comfort, Pittsburgh, Crosby, Malkin. One Mr. Nick Bonino rings a bell.
That third line, man. Benino, Hagel, and Kessel was electric.
Hagelin.
Carl Hagelin, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the center depth wins cups. I mean, look at the Vegas Golden Knights last year getting to play William Karlsson on the third line. Like when you have that kind of center depth, you have a massive, massive advantage. Getting a guy up the middle of the ice who can play every role everywhere you need, it's perfect. I mean, I think we might as well move on from the East. I have one last thing to say there. Um, it's been a treat getting to watch all of the stuff Paul Maurice says before and after games and every media availability. That guy's truly a gift to the NHL. Wonderful coach, great media presence, and I hope for our sake the Panthers get knocked out of the playoffs one of these years so he can be a guest panelist at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it's gonna happen, but um one more thing as well. What did Matthew Tkachuk say in his post-game interview? I told you we'd be back.
Well, and it's worth mentioning as well, talking about these Florida Panthers, how often are teams back? Right? It's been a decade and a half since a losing finalist has managed to make the following final. It was Crosby's Penguins, and that's because like you go through this 82 game season, 4 round playoff to come up short, and it's so hard to focus up and just run it back again from square one. And Florida's done it, and I think that I think Paul Maurice deserves a tremendous amount of credit, and I think the leadership deserves a tremendous amount of credit for rallying that team. And you know what? If Florida wins this cup, it'll be very well deserved.
Well, Aiden, you could argue that it's been playoffs for them since halfway through last season when they were not in a playoff spot and they were fighting for their lives. It was win most nights or don't get in. And then this season, they had all those guys injured for so long. Those guys were banged up after last playoffs. Matthew Tkachuk, Brandon Montour, Sam Bennett, Barkov. Like there were a lot of guys who you looked at and went, ugh, I don't know how they're going to play next season. Well, most of them came back ahead of schedule. Most of them performed better than expectations. Montour was a little bit rusty coming in, but I mean, reasonably so. The guy went through a lot to come back. And what do you know? He's playing great, playing top notch hockey again. I can't say enough great things about these Florida Panthers. So instead of me gushing about them endlessly, let's move to the West. That Stars Oilers series, Aiden, that did not go how either of us expected. I think when we were previewing the series, I said it's going to have to be all hands on deck. And I listed about 8 or 9 things that are going to have to go right for the Oilers. Of those things, depth scoring, the Oilers star players being the best players on the ice on multiple nights, Stuart Skinner stealing a couple games, multiple things going right. And what do you know? They went right. And with the Stars out shooting them, I believe 35-10 in game 6, it didn't matter. The Oilers take a 2-1 victory and win the Western Conference. But what do you have to say? Let's break it down.
Oh boy. Well, and it's not to say that everything went right in every game or even every win, but Chris Knobloch is producing some magic, especially when you consider that, like, how long had it been since Philip Broberg played? Months and months. But he puts him in for a struggling Vinny Desharnais, and Broberg just he plays the best hockey I've ever seen him play in NHL action. Like it's as simple as that. This guy, for me, in my head, in the course of a week, has gone from man, Edmonton's just got to offload him for a draft pick. He's going to be a number 7 his whole career to maybe actually thinking this guy could crack this Oilers lineup next year just because he comes into this high pressure situation. And the thing about Broberg that struck me the most, and I didn't expect to just immediately go to him off the top of this, but the thing about him that struck me the most was like he looked composed, man. that guy looked calm on the puck, and that is not an easy thing to be being put into that situation. And then building off the rest of what you said, the Oilers got some more depth scoring. They needed it. They got Stuart Skinner to play good hockey too. They needed that bad. Uh,
Great hockey.
yeah, he especially that game six. Like it's and again, you know what? Much in the way that I'm praising Philip Broberg for the composure aspect. That's what I got to give props to Stuart Skinner for as well because he faced 35 shots and what I noticed in the Vancouver series was every time he made a save, it was almost like every shot on goal you kind of felt like 50-50 either was going to go in or there was going to be a big rebound. Like it felt like every time the puck got below the tops of the circles, it was a scoring chance. And that's harsh on him, but it was also the way he looked in the net. He looked nervous. Every save he was making, it looked like he was fighting to make that save. This guy in this series was just a rock. He was calm, he was collected, and after game three, I really didn't get the sense that, Dallas Dallas was going to rip this guy apart the way I did early in the series. And Skinner, man, Skinner earned the crap out of this series win.
Well, Aiden, after game five, Stuart Skinner made some comments when asked about how he's going to approach game six, how he's going to stay calm, how he's going to remain collected, how he's going to become confident, stay confident. And his answer said, well, I play Mario Kart on the plane with the boys, and I'll stay pretty calm and confident for that. And I think there were a couple other lines, but I remember thinking, he's talking about Mario Kart? He's gonna get blown out in game six. Boy, was I ever wrong. The Stars tried to blow him out. That shot differential was ridiculous. But man, he proved me and a lot of people wrong. And Aiden, that's a lot of what the Stanley Cup playoffs is about. There is always someone who you think shouldn't be there, whether it's a player or a team, anyone, who just proves that point. I deserve to be here and I'm going to work to show you. There have been multiple times in this season, this playoffs, where I've gone, Stuart Skinner is not the goalie. I am pleasantly surprised. This guy's earned his way through. Incredible job from him. And I mean, it's the kind of thing where it inspires confidence throughout the lineup when your goalie's doing that. It makes you think, man, if he's showing up, we can really do this. I need to show up for him. You saw a lot of guys step up. One other thing I want to talk about in this series a lot is Darnell Nurse. He's been a hot topic. I mean, he had a couple games this series with quite a few mistakes. I think the series before even. And it's the kind of thing where the media was on him and they were on his teammates asking about it. And I thought he played steady Eddie. He had kind of one misplay early in game six, and then I thought he settled it right down after that. I mean, it was the kind of thing where Oilers defensemen had to really work to box out the Stars and keep them from getting a lot of chances in tight. And I felt like he was a big part of that. Aiden, what can you say about the play of Darnell Nurse responding to that kind of thing?
It's hard. It is hard because I thought the fact that he was able to focus up, drown out the noise, and just play the best hockey he could. That's impressive, and I respect that. I still don't think he was as good as he needs to be, right? Like, and again, you at the end of the day, I'm sure everybody's really sick and tired of hearing like, oh, he makes $9.5 million. But it's valid, man. It is. Your team's in the Stanley Cup final. You're making that percent of their salary cap. You got to contribute at least that percent to their team's success, right? Like we live in a salary cap league, right? The money you make is going to always be put up against your production and being worth it or not. And that's, at the end of the day, I also don't want a hard salary cap, Darnell. I'm sure everybody in the NHL, every single player probably doesn't want it because it means they're going to be paid less money until the end of time. But like I'm glad that he's playing good enough I still think something's got to give in terms of he still has to be better. He still has to be he still has room to improve to be what they need him to be. And I think at this point, with the way Bouchard and Ekholm are on that first pair, you just need him to be a reliable number three. That's all I think I'm asking of Darnell Nurse moving forward, both in this series and moving forward through this contract, because he's still obviously going to be overpaid for a reliable number three, but at least you know what you're getting, and he should never be negatively affecting the team. So as much as yeah, like props to Nurse for improving the play, turning it around a little bit. I'm still of the opinion that this Stanley Cup final, it still has a lot to prove for him. And I'm not I'm always more pro buyout than everybody else. So I definitely kind of was like this might be happening. I might do this if I was the Oilers. I his play in the West final strayed me a little bit, made it a little bit more gray. And I think in the Stanley Cup final he can show the Oilers that they need him there.
Like Aiden, if I offer you $1 million for something and you suck at it, I'll never fault you for accepting that $1 million offer. Ever.
No, but you can definitely expect me to earn it more. Like
Totally, totally. But in the end, it's my fault that I offered you this $1 million. I probably should have looked better into the performance and what I'm going to get for this $1 million that I'm now contractually obligated to give to you. And that's the point that I will probably always make when, you know what? I'm a fan of the sport. I'm a fan of a team. And there have been contracts where I'm like, ugh, I wish that wasn't there. But it's not, I wish that player didn't accept it. It's, I wish that some person in management didn't go, this is a good idea. Here's your money. Take it. You know what? It's the kind of thing where now this guy and his family have probably intergenerational wealth, and that's awesome. Happy for him. But yes, we are in the world of sports, and this will always be harshly critiqued. And the one thing that I hope is that some people go, oh, you know what? There is a general manager who offered that contract. I think maybe I should blame them. That's the only request I have for sports fans out there, for whoever's listening. But yeah, I mean, I hope Nurse can keep it up for this cup final. I guess moving on to the Stars. Just what was missing? Why couldn't they get this done?
I thought Rupe Hintz and Joe Pavelski needed to be better. Jake Ottinger played pretty well. Jake Ottinger can't control the fact that Stuart Skinner showed up, right? Like, um,
And I also won't fault Ottinger for those two power play goals. I don't think he had much of a chance on either of them. Maybe he could have got one. Maybe.
are you talking about game six?
Yeah.
Wow. Like, backhand shots are the hardest to save. You never know
Yeah.
where they're going, right? Like, I'm never gonna fault a goalie for letting in a backhand from like the slot, right? Like, um, yeah, it felt a little bit like they sort of just ran out of gas by the end of that Oilers series, honestly. That it's simple, but that's all there was to it in my eyes.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the Stars too is like everyone looks at that forward depth. Everyone looks at the young elite goaltender in Jake Ottinger. Everyone looks at the quality defensive depth following Miro Heiskanen. But you looked at Chris Tanev walking in a boot and clearly not being at his peak health. And you looked at, I mean, the time wearing on Joe Pavelski. You looked at maybe just what the Stars went through the first two rounds, taking the Golden Knights to 7 and winning, beating Colorado in fairly dominant fashion in 6. Uh, Those were no easy feats. Those teams were pretty difficult to get through, even when the Stars made it look easy. There's no doubt that that took a lot of energy. But you know what, Aiden? That's why the Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy in sports. You have to win 4 series, and none of them are going to be easy. You might get one. You might get one easy one. But that easy one is still night in, night out a team grinding at you.
And that's if you're lucky. You get one.
Yeah. So you know what? I'm gonna give full props to the Stars. They gave it what they could. They put 35 shots on Skinner in that last game, Aiden. They only allowed 10 shots. And I'm pretty sure five of them were on the power play. They only allowed five or six even strength shots. Like, what more can you ask for? They played a pretty perfect game. But you know what? A great coach once said, if my goalie is better than yours, I win. If your goalie is better than mine, you win.
Okay,
Simple as that. That's what happened.
so I'll pose this question to you and I'm going to omit the Skinner Bobrovsky factors here because
Because every time that you balance it, make a prediction on a series based on a goaltending matchup, it goes south.
not every time, but more often than not, I think. Uh,
Yep.
See Ilya Sorokin beating the Hurricanes last season.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I smartened up this year, but the what I was gonna throw your way, and I was gonna say omit Skinner Bobrovsky because it's almost low hanging fruit that oh yeah, Stuart Skinner needs to keep it up and Sergei Bobrovsky needs to be at his best. Give me two big keys to victory for the Panthers, and I'll give you two big keys to victory for the Oilers.
Okay. Well, number one for the Panthers is maintaining pace. And I'm not just talking about skating. I'm talking about the physicality that comes with it. I'm talking about the unrelenting pressure that they follow power plays that they didn't score on with. Florida is a team where if they don't score on you on the power play, they're going to hound you in the neutral zone and keep it in your defensive zone the whole time. They are going to use that time to just wear on you. And I think that just maintaining pressure is one of the biggest ones for them. Number two, I think you are going to, I mean, while you have that incredible depth in Florida, I think your star players are going to have to attempt to match what the Oilers' star players do offensively. And you notice I said offensively because the Florida Panthers have all of those forwards who can play incredible defensive hockey. And yes, they are extremely talented offensively as well. But I think you're going to have to see Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Reinhart, and to an extent, Alexander Barkov as well put up incredible series offensively. Like, I'm going to need minimum 18 points from the three of those guys. Probably 18 points. That's my guess. A benchmark of 6 points each in this series from those three guys. Um, yeah, yeah, that's I think that's where I trail off here because I'm just thinking about that matchup and there's probably going to be three games in this cup final where McDavid has 3 points or at least two, I'll say. So you're going to have to try your best to match that. I think it's not going to be easy at all, but I am fairly confident in Florida taking this series if they can have 75% of that go right.
Sam Reinhart, I want to see some more at 5-on-5. That's probably my
Yeah. Yeah, you might start getting less calls in the cup finals too.
well, and that's part of my Oilers point here. Number one for me is literally the direct contrast to what your one for Florida was for Edmonton, which is I want to see their defense and their wingers and their centers and whoever else has the puck in the defensive zone. The puck has to be moved immediately. They cannot get sucked in to letting the Panthers forecheck bully them around. I think Edmonton has to focus on the puck gets behind you, it needs to be into the neutral zone as fast as you can possibly get it. Like you cannot be going back for pucks and letting the Panthers come in on you with speed. You're gonna lose it. You're gonna get hemmed, right? And you're gonna take some you're gonna take some licks in the process too. So Edmonton for me, number one is in the defensive zone. You cannot waste a second of transitioning that puck forward. Number two is the penalty kill. Florida has a good power play. It's not as dominant as the Edmonton Oilers is, but Edmonton's power play is always going to be good. They need to outscore their opponent 5 on 4, which their power play is going to score. I think the PK continuing to be good is the other big one.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. You were right. That does directly line up with what I was saying. We kind of have the same ideas here.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, okay, let's. Do you have an X factor player for Edmonton at all?
Again, it's almost the easy way out, but it's Skinner, right? Yeah, I think he's the biggest can win or lose them this series. He needs to be 85% as good as Bobrovsky is, and Edmonton wins. I think that's the bar for me. Is if he's worse than that, I think the Panthers are gonna win. If he's better than that, I think Edmonton's gonna win.
Well, and see, the thing with Bobrovsky too is like it his skill and his dominance lies in okay, I let in one, I let in two. I'm shutting the door from here on out. You're not getting another one on me. So Skinner's going to have to try and match that. Skinner's going to have to be able to okay, I let in one. Maybe that wasn't a very good one. Maybe I should have had that. I need to rebound from that extremely well because the guy at the other end of the ice, he's let in one or two. He's not letting in another. It's done. The door is closed on that side, and I need to close mine.
So
I
James,
don't want to make a prediction, Aiden. I don't want to do it.
we should though,
I
right?
don't want to shrivel anyone because whoever I predict it's not going to go well.
Okay, who do you want to win?
Who do I want to win? Um, you know, it would be crazy seeing a cup in Canada. It would be absolutely mental. But we know that when I don't have a dog in the fight, I cheer for players. We know this. This is something I've maintained all playoffs. This is something I've maintained probably since we started this podcast. And for anyone who was friends with me beforehand or has listened to me ramble about hockey before that, this is always a stance I've taken. Kyle Okposo getting his name on the cup would be pretty sweet. Sergei Bobrovsky, we've already covered extensively. I would love to see his name on the cup, cement that legacy, get it etched in stone forever, or etched in a cup forever, rather. On top of that, Oliver Ekman Larson, a guy who has redefined himself in a different role beautifully at that mat, like at that. I've always blindly cheered for Matthew Tkachuk. I love watching that guy play hockey. I would love to see him hoist the cup, and I think the celebration would be absolutely electric. He's a guy would have fun with the cup, and I love watching a good cup celebration. um, yeah, I think I want to see a lot of Panthers players win it more. Sam Reinhart, West Vancouver guy, a guy who gave me an interview while working at City News when he didn't have to, and I was a relatively inexperienced journalist, which you know what I still am, but he gave me that one, and always a player I cheer for beforehand and from there on out as well. But then I don't know. I mean, I think I lean towards Florida a bit more, but at this rate, I'm just cheering for the players and some damn good hockey, which I know we're gonna get. But you know what? Oh, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make a prediction. Panthers in six. What do you got?
I probably want Edmonton to win this cup.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think
I
I
like
think
Aiden, there's no wrong answer here.
yeah, but I think Florida will. Like
Oh no.
that's probably my prediction. Like I would the cup in Canada thing. Your if the storyline you're gonna say I'm sick of, I never want to hear it about it again is the Toronto thing for some reason. I'll one up you and say the idiot Americans who think that um they're better at hockey because the teams in their cities win. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see the time stretch between Canadian Cup champs be ended here because that's probably the one I'm sick of the most. Is the America's won the last how many Stanley Cups, as if 18 of 21 players every year aren't Canadian.
Aiden, it's funny you say that because I was used to get ridiculed, usually by people at least 10 years older than me, for being an Avalanche fan, saying, "Oh, why wouldn't you pick a Canadian team?" And during a stretch in the 2010s, I believe for 2.5 to 3 years, Colorado had the most Canadian players on their roster and in their organization of anyone in the league. And I would pull up those numbers and they'd go, "Oh, well, whatever." I would get the whatever, and then that conversation would be over. So you know what? You don't need to pick a Canadian team. In my friend group, Aiden, I think you're one of two people that is actually a fan of a Canadian team that chose a Canadian team as yours. And I will never fault any one of my friends for choosing one. I've got Ducks fans, I got Pittsburgh fans, I got Lightning fans, I got everything in between. And I don't care. Cheer for who you want to cheer for. I really don't care. Fly at her. But all right, well, we've both picked the Florida Panthers to win. How many games? What do you got?
I think it's in 7.
Okay. You
I
know what? I hope it's 7.
Me too.
I want 7 because then it's on my birthday.
Yeah.
That's a dream come true. But I think we've covered everything we need to cover for what's going on here. I'm really excited to see what happens in this cup final. But I think it's time we move on from this whole cup finals thing we have because I could gush about it forever. As we've covered, I'm very excited. But it's time to move on to junior because the Saginaw Spirit won the Memorial Cup, beating the London Knights, Easton Cowan's London Knights. And from what I can tell, this was one hell of a Memorial Cup. Every little highlight package that I tapped into, every breakdown of games that I read through, man, this was good hockey.
I I know it happens in the Memorial Cup. It has to, right? Because there's 4 teams, they all play each other once, and then there's a medal round. Um, but whether it be soccer tournaments, Olympic hockey tournaments, World Juniors, I love seeing either like a big semifinal or a gold medal game occur between two teams that played in the group, because I love to see the dynamic of like, okay, we either beat these guys last time or we lost these guys last time. Here's what's happened since. Here's what we need to do. And London in the last round robin game beat Saginaw 4-2. Saginaw ends up playing Moose Jaw in the semis and they crush them. They beat them 7-1. So now they're back in the final against London. And this is a London team that went 3-0. We're the favorites going in, but a couple goals from Owen Beck later. Didn't matter that London outshot them 31-13. Like, they held on, and I think Michael Misa deserves a lot of credit. He didn't end up scoring, but he got 5 assists and he played good hockey. Like, he was a consensus number one overall guy for 2025 until the start of this season. And he's been surpassed by at least two guys. Just didn't have a great, you know, didn't progress the way he needed to continue to be the top prospect. But he showed a lot in this Memorial Cup, and he showed a lot of, all right, it doesn't matter if I'm not if I'm not the guy, I'm gonna do whatever I can. I'm gonna do whatever I need to, and I admire that a lot. And Saginaw deserved it. Josh Bloom, the Canuck pick, was their leading scorer in the Memorial Cup. Their most impressive player to me was Zane Perrick, who's going to be a top 10 pick. Our mock drafts are starting to come together here, and I don't see a way he slips out of the top 10. He's one dynamic player.
Yeah, man. And I mean, you're right about those storylines going in. That's what makes it all for us, right? Like you and I are both big fans of this kind of tournament play, and it's the kind of thing where it just adds that extra layer to it. I thought that the London Knights being so dominant in so many of the games they played, and then eventually losing that game, I kind of enjoy that storyline of like the biggest powerhouse that like in the tournament eventually taking the loss. And you look at it, the Knights were in it. Like they were very close in it. Like whenever they were out, they were coming back. I believe Easton Cowan tied the game at what was it, 2, 3, something like that. But it it was the kind of thing, yeah, at 2. They managed to come back in. But that's just the coolest thing. Like you said, Josh Bloom, not the best player in the tournament, but probably one of the guys who worked the hardest. He was there and he showed up. I mean, it's a pretty cool thing to see a host team win as well, because that's the way the Memorial Cup's structured, right? For anyone who is unfamiliar with how it works, you've got the winner of the WHL, the winner of the OHL, and the winner of the QMJHL, as well as a host team that would have competed in their respective leagues playoffs as well. And I always love watching the host team win because as soon as you tune into that broadcast, these fans are stoked. Aiden, you and I have both been involved with junior hockey before, and local communities get damn involved. They love it. These kids are all wearing their respective junior team jerseys. You've got a bunch of parents who have been season ticket holders since they were a billet family 15, 20 years ago, and now they just love it. It's the best, man. Junior hockey culture is a ton of fun when it comes to the communities involved. And I love that a host city got to take the win. Aiden, do you enjoy host cities taking the dub? How do you feel about that?
Yes, because when you host, you really go all in. Like if a host city just didn't, like if it was three other teams that went through a war to win their leagues and the host team was just this mediocre team that happened to be there and then upset everybody, I wouldn't like it as much. But when a team is hosting the Memorial Cup, they load up. So it's a deserved victory for those teams because they did earn it. They built the team to win that game. Um and yeah, Saginaw, Michigan, man, they showed up. It was a fun tournament.
Aiden, have you looked at the places Josh Bloom played this year?
He is technically Canuck property. So yes, I am somewhat familiar. I know he was in Abbotsford at one point.
14 games with the Abbotsford Canucks in the AHL, 8 games with the Kalamazoo Wings of the ECHL, and then 34 games in Saginaw before 17 playoff games.
Well, and that
That's a well-traveled fellow right there.
and this is the guy too. Don't forget that this is his last year at junior hockey, right?
Yep.
Great way to go out if you're him.
Going out on top. That's awesome, man. Well, I think that's all we have on the Memorial Cup, unless you have anything else to add there.
No, just congrats Saginaw and man. Zane Perrick, remember the name. He's gonna be a top 10 pick this year. Uh he's probably the guy to me, James, that could rise the most.
Right.
He's probably the guy that could rise the most.
I've seen a couple people say that. I've seen people go, he's the least. I think someone said he's one of the least bust boomer bust style prospects I've seen in a long time.
Really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like
really,
he fits the mold of that boomer bust prospect where it's like he could be a star player or he could be a fringe guy on the outside looking in, but the bust end feels very, very low.
yeah, yeah,
Well, moving on. We haven't covered movies yet. And Aiden, I watched a banger.
yeah.
I watched an absolute banger. I texted you, I think yesterday. I finally watched Almost Famous. Aiden, are you familiar with this movie at all?
Vaguely, but I definitely, if I've seen it, I don't remember it.
Well, this is exactly your kind of movie because it is about a kid named William Miller who is based on someone named Cameron Crowe. Cameron Crowe was a teen journalist and reporter for the Rolling Stone in the 70s. and he would go on tour with these bands and follow them to get their article going as a teenager. Like he was I want to say like 15 or 16, and it is just such an awesome adventure. Kate Hudson plays a girl who's basically like one level up from groupie, and her and her friends call themselves the Band-Aids. And yeah, so this kid just goes on a crazy adventure. It's awesome. He follows this band on tour through the States as they're on the rise. It's a fictional band they made up called Stillwater. And man, incredible flick. It bends the adventure with coming of age and then a lot of human relationships. And man, it was one of those movies where you get to the end and you feel really good. Aiden, you know those movies where you click off of it or you walk out of the theater and you feel refreshed emotionally. I came out of that movie going, I'm gonna have a really good day. And then I looked at it. The guy who directed it is the one who the story's based on.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. He's a journalist, screenwriter, and director. Yeah. So no wonder he was able to tell his story so well. And then I looked into it. People praised him for being so accurate.
That's the other.
I mean, that's what happens when you're a journalist turned screenwriter, I guess.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at this movie at all, it gets rave reviews. And I
You
texted another friend of mine who was a big movie nerd, and he hadn't seen it either. And I told him this is probably on the fringes of my top 10 favorite movies ever after one watch.
That's glowing. What's it streaming on?
Prime.
Okay. That'll
Yeah.
be that'll be sometime in the next month for sure then.
I mean, Aiden, his first assignment for a different music magazine is to go meet Black Sabbath and write a story about them.
Oh boy.
And then he gets kindly told to, make like a tree and disappear. And yeah, and then he ends up with this other band. It's incredible. It's an awesome flick, and I think you're gonna love it. I think this might end up being one of your all-time favorites as well, and I can't wait to hear about what you think. Well, I guess that begs the question though. What have you watched? You got one?
Probably two good ones to report. Christopher Nolan's Insomnia. Have you seen it?
I've seen bits and pieces as a kid because I told you about this recently, and someone else asked about this recently too. Parts of it were filmed in Port Alberni and Ucluelet, and Robin Williams frequented a few restaurants in Port Alberni, and growing up in the Swale Rock Cafe, where we would go to get brunch and fisherman's bread, there was a picture of Robin Williams on the wall with the owners, a signed one, and I always remember thinking that was the coolest thing. And my grandpa told me a little bit about it. Apparently, he was just uh, he valued his privacy, and he was a salt of the earth human being who just wanted to come enjoy a meal, have a quick conversation with the people working there, and then go back to what he was doing. And so that's the only thing I knew about it. I've always wanted to watch it in full, but I've just kind of been waiting for the right moment. It's high on my list, though. How was it?
Quite good. Pacino and Hilary Swank and Robin Williams are all not only are they all fun to watch individually, the chemistry is great. Very believable. Everybody in that movie is believable. Characters' motivations uh seem a little bit out there, but once you think about it a little bit, it's like, okay, yeah, I can get it. I can get it. Um I liked it a lot. The other one, Denny Villeneuve's Arrival. Have you seen that one?
Dude, that's high on my list.
Yeah, that was quite good too. It was very well done. Upper echelon of like outer space movies to me, for sure.
I was told if you're talking aliens arriving on planet Earth sci-fi, it's about as good as it gets.
It's the best I've ever seen in that category for sure. I can't
Which
think.
there are a lot of in that category.
Yeah, a lot of I'll say quantity, not quality in that category most of the time. But yeah, they exist.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some good ones. I found a lot of the time TV shows do that better because you're able to flesh out the process of how that happens a bit more. But yeah, that one's high on my list too. I mean, I was just looking at that the other day. I actually chose to watch Almost Famous instead of it, believe it or not. So, I mean, that kind of lines up nice. We both have an assignment now. We both have something we have to watch. Moving on to questions. We just have a couple strays from last week. Again, we really appreciate the ones you guys sent in, and next pod we'll ask again because we love the interaction with you guys. This one, it was about Steven Stamkos. Is he staying? Is he leaving? Is he going anywhere specific, and why? Aiden, I'll let you answer before I go.
Steven Stamkos and Steve Yzerman will sit down in a room and work out a contract that will see Steven Stamkos play for Steve Yzerman for the remainder of his career. He's going to be a Detroit Red Wing.
You know what? You're a jerk because that's what I said before. That's what I've said in conversation.
Yeah,
And
it's a no-brainer though, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
totally it's like and Detroit's exactly at the time in their curve of being a developing team that you add him and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we could sneakily sneak into a top three little Atlantic Division spot next year, maybe, right? Like um I think Marco Casper and Nate Danielson being able to learn from this guy is huge. I think Larkin, Stamkos, Casper, Comfer as a group of four centers for the next couple of years is huge. I
Does that
don't
say goodbye to Patrick Kane,
know for sure too. Yeah, I think with
who we should mention was fantastic.
yeah, he showed up in Detroit. That was for sure. Yeah, no doubt.
Showtime, baby.
No, he played some good hockey there. Yeah,
Okay. Well,
you
you took that one. Now I have to suck. You know what I have to do?
can move on to the next question if that's both of them.
No, no. He's going to the Leafs.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah, Markham, Ontario's own Steve Stamkos
Don't you
is to
think
go
it
sign
should
with the
be
Leafs.
significant? Well, apparently Marner's staying, so where's the money coming from?
Nah, I'm not so sold on the Marner staying thing yet.
He's got a no trade clause. If he says he's staying, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, I'm not sold. I think something's gonna give. I think something's gonna happen.
I could see Stamkos to Toronto a lot more if Tavares was up this year. I'll say that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe there's a team out there that thinks 1 year of John Tavares for 11 million bucks. Sure. But unless that happens, I don't think Stamkos goes there. I think that's the
Yeah,
only see that happen.
yeah, totally. It would be fun. Moving on to our second final question. Someone asked us to make a prediction on coaching vacancies, and really the only notable head coaching option right now is the San Jose Sharks, and that's after quite a few jobs have been filled as of late. I mean, we've seen Sheldon Keefe go to the New Jersey Devils. We've seen Scott Arniel maintain that status in Winnipeg and end up the head coach there. But yeah, the San Jose Sharks. I don't think they're going to go with someone experienced, Aiden. I think they're going to go the route of experienced NHLer slash pro, and someone who is fairly new to the whole coaching thing in the NHL. I think Mark Savard kind of fits that bill pretty well, or a guy of that mold. Someone who spent a lot of time in the league, someone who can really teach these young guys how to be a professional. Because we're going to see Will Smith, probably Macklin Celebrini. They've got Thomas Bordeleau, William Eklund, like all of these guys who, I mean, don't really have much of that experience factor. And I think a guy of that mold would really fit the bill. Aiden, would you think otherwise? Would you opt for an experienced coach rather?
I could definitely see them going both ways. I know what you're thinking, especially kind of in the context of like To an extent, you know what you're getting with the head coaches that are always available, right? Like the coaching carousel thing. You do vaguely know what you're getting in each coach you're hiring, and I think for San Jose, bringing in a guy that can grow with the team gives you kind of almost more potential in that spot, right? If that makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah, I see what you mean. I appreciate you supporting what I was going with because I think a lot of people would think, oh, you need an experienced guy to bring all these young fellas in. But I mean, I think growing with the team is almost more important.
Yeah, especially with where they're gonna be, right? Like it's
Oh, they're gonna suck. They're
yeah,
gonna be bad.
but it's going in the right direction, right? It's
Will Smith is gonna be a minus 29.
Will Smith is gonna struggle, man. I think everybody expecting Will Smith to do anything is gonna be pretty brutally
But
disappointed.
you know what? I hope he proves us wrong. I hope he has a great year.
Yeah, I think I think this year for Will Smith is just if he can finish the season this year and say I'm a better hockey player than I was when I started, it's a success. That's all he needs to.
Yeah.
That's all he
Yeah,
needs to.
that's all that needs to happen. And I hope he keeps his spirits up. I mean, losing all the time isn't easy.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think that's all we've got for today's pod. We will catch all of you guys next week as the cup finals have gotten underway. We want to thank all of you guys for listening, and without further ado, let's roll that outro.